Well, welcome again. This is this week's episode of Fill in the Blank, and I'm Ross Strader, joined by my co-host Keith Abels. And Fill in the Blank is a weekly discussion of how the technology of today impacts the world of tomorrow. And so we'd love to hear from you. We'd love to hear how, technology today, how you think it's going to impact the world of tomorrow. You can communicate with us. Send us an email at fitbpodcast@gmail.com, or you can find us on Twitter. Just throw something out there and then include the hashtag AskFITB. That's hashtag AskFITB. Sorry, Keith, it's not FITB. You'll get Fitbit will respond to you if you do that. It's hashtag AskFITB, and you can join the discussion. We'd love to hear your thoughts on this show today or any of the previous shows. We're glad that you are joining us on this journey. So, Keith, tell us, so you had an idea about Patreon, which is the way we are gaining the support for this endeavor, this Fill in the Blank podcast. So tell us about Patreon and then give us an idea there.
All right, so Patreon, as you all know, allows you to support our show on your terms. You can contribute any amount you want, so you get to decide how much our show is worth to you. And you can go to patreon.com/FITB. That's Patreon, patreon.com/FITB to show your support. And here's the challenge for our listeners. I challenge you to contribute just $1 per month. That's it, $1. So you can go to patreon.com/FITB and support us by just contributing $1 a month. I promise you, you won't miss it. It's only 3 cents a day. Now, here are some things you can get for $1. One of the things you can get for $1 is a full month's worth of episodes of Fill in the Blank. I think that's a pretty good deal. Here's some other things you can get. You can get one song on iTunes. Who does that anymore? Ross, when's the last time you bought a song?
I can't remember.
Never. Well, never in the last couple of years.
I pay them like $15 a month to listen to all their songs.
Yeah, exactly. Nobody does that anymore. Here's something else you can get for $1. One McChicken sandwich at McDonald's. Gross. Who would buy that? Any food that starts with Mick, I suggest you don't buy it.
Right.
That's just my personal opinion. All right, so for $1, you can get one song on iTunes, you can get a McChicken sandwich, or you can get a full month worth of the Fill in the Blank podcast. We're an independent show. That means we're not part of a network. We are not ad-supported. We do not accept any advertisements of any kind, and we would like to keep it independent. And in order to do that, we need your support. And we want to grow our audience, and your support helps us do that. So think about it like this. Think about you're supporting the smallest of small businesses. This is 2 guys starting a new endeavor, and $1 a month could help with that tremendously. So thank you for listening to the show. We really appreciate it. And if you're able, please visit us on patreon.com/FITB to show your support.
Yeah, and Keith, I don't even think you can buy a newspaper for $1 anymore. Is that right?
What's a newspaper?
You don't buy newspapers, do you? That's right. This is about technology. All right. So, hey, listen, let's follow up from last week. You get a report every week about where new listeners come from, and you have something to say to our new listeners this week, don't you?
I do. Privyet. That is one of many ways to say hello in Russian, because we are officially in Russia.
Hey, that's pretty exciting. You think it's the Kremlin? You think?
I do. I think they are very interested in me personally. I think they realize if they want to figure out what's going on in the United States, they better tap into what Keith's got going on. So I do. And now the good news is there are a lot of very wealthy Russian folks out there. So, hey, to our friends in Russia that may or may not be extremely wealthy, patreon.com/FITB.
We love the motherland.
Yes, thank you. Thank you to the good people in Russia that are listening to the show. I was very excited to see that for 2 reasons. Number one, it's another country we can just kind of put a check beside, and that's awesome. But another reason, on the service that we use to distribute our show, it gives you some pretty good data, and it gives you a map of the world, and it shows you the countries that your show is listened to or downloaded and streamed in or whatever. And Russia is gigantic. So if you look at that on the map, it is enormous. And so that big country being filled in is a big chunk of the world filled in. So it kind of makes me feel good that we've got the Russian support. We could use some Chinese support too, because that's another gigantic country. So if you know any folks that live in China that might want to listen to just two goofballs talk about technology once a week, then maybe send them a link to the show.
I think so. Fill in the blanks, ready to take China by storm. I'm telling you.
Yep.
I've always said that, and I'll say it again.
Another piece of follow-up here, Ross, from last week. We spent quite a bit of time talking about the iPad Pro, one of our favorite devices, and along with the iPad Pro, the Apple Pencil. And you have the little clip that you just swiped off of a mechanical pencil, I believe, and put onto your Apple Pencil so that you've got a place to kind of keep it and secure it when you're not using it. I put a picture of that out on Twitter. I'm at Keith Abels, KeithAbels on the Twitter, if you want to go take a look at that. I have not done that yet, but I did come across another solution that we kind of thought might work last week, and this is made by 12 South. They make awesome Apple accessories. They don't make accessories for anything else. They only make accessories for Mac computers and then iPhones and iPads. They make really good stuff. And it's called the Pencil Snap. And this looks very similar to that little leather sleeve that Apple makes that you put your pencil in.
Yeah.
The problem is Apple, you don't have anywhere to put that. You put your pencil in the leather sleeve, and then that's still just a free floating thing. You have nowhere to attach it or nowhere to keep it. And this is basically that, but it's got magnets on the back side of it that are embedded in the leather sleeve, and that just attaches anywhere to your smart keyboard or whatever case you have going on. I think it's a pretty good solution to it. I'll put a link in the show notes to that, but that's called the Pencil Snap from 12 South. The final piece of follow-up, Ross.
Yeah.
Last week, we talked about the need for humans to regain their humanity, and I just need to check and see if that's happened yet. So can I get a report from you? Has that happened yet?
Well, no, I have seen no evidence. In fact, I came across an article that leads me to believe we're going in the opposite direction. At least in the last 7 days. Let me just say it that way.
I, too, have zero evidence of any improvement in the last 7 days, sadly. So maybe we should check in another 7 days and see how things go.
Yeah, we'll check in another 7 days. And the only one strategy would be is that we keep entirely away from all tech news. I mean, that might be the way that we, we do our part, stay away from tech news for a week. But I mean, even just this week, I found this, came across this article, hit my Flipboard. It was about parents exploiting their children and the money they make on social media. So I was talking about all these 12-year-olds, 13-year-olds, 17-year-olds that are making millions of dollars through social media, and the sort of parents' exploitation of their children. And so that goes in the opposite directions of regaining our humanity, I think.
I think this is the modern version of the child beauty pageant.
It is, but more, it is in such a flash in the pan. I mean, that there's no way that's sustainable. Well, I guess so. Who knows? I sound like an old man, but that, so is it even real? I mean, it's not even real. It's not, I mean, I guess it's art. I don't know. Is it art? What is it?
Well, that's an eye of the beholder kind of question, I think. I would hesitate personally to call that art. I don't know what you call it. Bono from U2 says, if you're not sure what to call it, it must be art. I don't think that applies here.
Right. All the millennials are Googling Bono to see exactly who that is that you refer to, Keith.
Yeah. I think we're showing our age a little bit here, but I don't care. This is our show, and we get to do what we want to do. That's
right. All right. Well, so not exactly the same topic today, because and we didn't talk the whole time about humanity, humans regaining humanity. We didn't talk about the whole thing last week, but it did come up, and man, it really struck a chord, and one we'd like to, a chord on the guitar we'd like to strum again here sometime soon. But in not particularly as a follow-up, but we were talking about, so is technology killing us? What exactly is, so as we think about technology of today, how it impacts the future, the trajectory of technology, and in particular, social media. And we were talking about, so here we are now 20 years after the fact or such, 15 years, depending on when you mark the beginning of social media in earnest. And there are folks, so it's such a rapidly developed industry that the folks that were there at the very beginning of the industry, they're middle-aged. They're 40s and 50s, and they remember with great clarity what that was like, and this thing they were creating that now we know as social media. We use it all the time in different platforms for different reasons to connect with different kinds of information or people or products. And so there's been a lot written just in the last month or two about sort of the founders of social media and their reflection upon that now 20 years later.
Yeah, in particular, Facebook. This is the one that tends to get demonized the most. I think they're the most worthy of getting the attention that they're getting because of some of the tactics that they use and really just some of the information that's just now coming to light. And yeah, there's quite a few articles that we'll refer to here, and we'll put a link to these in the show notes. And let's just start with the first one here. And this is coming from The Guardian. Ex-Facebook president Sean Parker, site made to exploit human vulnerability. So Sean Parker, you may remember that name. He's the guy that started Napster. Remember Napster?
I do. He's the guy that ended up funding Zuckerberg. In fact, I think he's portrayed in the movie. That's who Zuckerberg meets with, becomes a primary funder of the deal, right?
He was somewhere in there.
It was in the movie. It should be true. Right?
Okay, sure. Yeah. All right, then we'll say yes, for sure. In this article, it says, Facebook's founders knew they were creating something addictive that exploited, quote, a vulnerability in human psychology. I believe that, and mainly because most of these platforms are built with that in mind. We kind of touched on the fact that video games do this all the time. Most of the products out there, tap into something, some sort of psychology or buying habit or emotion. And, the people that make these things, the creators of any product really, they're creative, and their objective is to either get you to buy their product or pay attention to, in this case, they want your attention. And so they're going to optimize their platform for attention. And to do that, they need to understand how people think. And, this is, at one point you do have to understand human psychology in order to make something that people want to use. But when that is used in a way that's unproductive, then you get into some really dark territory. And I think that's where we're getting right now.
Yeah, it is interesting. So when you think about the creative process, you think about, so what, necessity is the mother of invention, that old saying. And most of the time, and when your mind goes to, hey, somebody created a product or they created a service or they were meeting a need. So they were seeing the vulnerability or the need was expressed out of, hey, we want to make people's lives better. We want to make them easier. We want to make them more efficient. And certainly there's the motive of, hey, and if we did this right and did it well and made a great product, we could make a lot of money. And I don't begrudge that at all. But it's an interesting statement when you talk about the creation process or the beginning of creating something that they knew was addictive and exploited a vulnerability in human psychology. It makes them sound like drug dealers. You know what I'm saying? That's a powerful statement.
Well, I would agree. Yeah, I agree completely. The one of the many issues that I have is the notion that these platforms are designed to make the world a better place, and that's a great motive. For sure. But what I hear from, in this case, Facebook, and you could apply it to a lot of other companies, is that, our platform was designed to bring the world together. And we can point to numerous instances where it's led to, great positive outcomes in different parts of the world. And it has brought the world together in a lot of ways. And it's helped families connect and friends reunite. And, there are a lot of good stories. And so they take credit for that, but then dismiss the unintended consequences that are typically negative as, well, we can't control that. Right? So, I mean, it's if you're going to take credit for the good, you kind of have to take blame for the bad.
Oh, yeah.
Whether that was your intention or not.
Yeah.
And you own that. If you own the good, you own the bad. You
Yeah.
can't have it one way. And that's one of my issues. And because in particular, there's been several, in particular with Facebook, there have been several articles written from multiple previous executives there. Sean Parker is just one of those. Because that's gotten so much attention lately, then, Mark Zuckerberg has come out with, a well-crafted statement about, what they're going to focus on. Now, here's what's really interesting. There's a study recently that talks about the impacts of people kind of mindlessly scrolling through the newsfeed. And the end result of that research is when you scroll through the newsfeed, you passively consume, which is the words that they use. When you just passively consume, a newsfeed that has just random information, which is aggregated for you, then you typically don't feel so great at the end of that. That's the very unscientific summary of the research. However, the same research says, but if you spend more time looking at things from your direct friends and family, then your experience is improved. And so in Zuckerberg's statement, and by the way, Facebook did their research, and that's what they came up with. So Facebook says this. I'm going to summarize Facebook's basic position. We know that looking at Facebook too much is bad for you. But the cure for that is to look at it more, but just make sure you're looking at stuff about your friends and family. And we're going to tweak the news feed so that you get more from your friends and family and less of this kind of third-party stuff that we brought into your news feed that we thought you might be interested in. Or, things from news sources or, other things that you may have liked that start showing up in your news feed. And I don't know that I trust their motives. Well, I shouldn't say that. I know I don't trust their motives.
No, it's a huge PR spin, and it's got to be. I don't know if it's directly related to all the interviews that have been done with people that were there back then, and as they all expressed their regret. But it's a fascinating deal. So back to what Sean Parker says. When he talks about the vulnerability in human psychology, the vulnerability that they identified. Now, listen, you have to give them credit. These guys were brilliant sociologists, maybe without even knowing it. But they talked about it as a social validation feedback loop. And it's that idea that, they tapped into this need everybody has to be validated, to have their esteem, to be, somebody to say, yeah, you're worthy. You're, so that's, those like buttons. So things get posted so they can, increase the likes. But he ends that deal by saying all of us are jacked into this system and all of our minds can be hijacked and our choices are not as free as we think they are. And so whether that's a true statement or not, that's what he believes. And it seems as though, behind the algorithms that were written and the, infrastructure that was built, that was the belief, is that, we can influence what people think and we can tap into their greatest needs in a way where they, they're addicted to us. They need us. They have to have what it is that we're providing. And it absolutely seems to be true.
I think it is a true statement. And the fact that our minds can be hijacked and we are not as in control of our thoughts and decisions as we think, I think that is true. If that statement was not true, then we would have zero advertising.
Yeah, that's a good point. That's right.
Why do we have so much advertising? All over the web, all over television, for those of you that watch television, all over, magazines, for those of you that remember what magazines are. It's all over everywhere, right? I'm a big soccer fan, and I watch, a lot of, especially European soccer, but I watch American soccer too. And, There's branding on the jerseys. They have sponsors. And with American sports teams, at least at this point, they don't have sponsors across the front of their jersey. They do on their practice jerseys, and, all the stadiums and arenas have, naming rights, sponsors, and that sort of thing. But, if you watch a hockey game or, a soccer match or whatever, all the way around the field you've got, or the rink in the case of hockey, you've got, the little kind of very small little billboard things that have all these different advertisements going on throughout the game. Because there are no commercial breaks in soccer, in the upper corner somewhere, there's a sponsor name listed up there. And, it kind of, sometimes it rotates throughout the game if there's multiple sponsors. If that stuff didn't influence our decisions and the things that we buy or the things that we use, then there would be no advertising business.
Yeah, that's exactly right. And for those that are listening to this in a different part of the world, there's also wildly popular in parts of this country here, NASCAR. And those are advertisements rolling around a track for hours.
Or, Formula One, which is a lot more popular, in other parts of the world, same thing.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, filled with advertisements. Yeah, so I think, the point is right. I imagine it has to take some courage to speak up and to say these things after all the fact. But the truth is, these are people that got wildly, unimaginably wealthy off of this entire process. And it was addicting people to a social validation feedback loop, much like rats in a cage that, they do drug testing on to see what's most addictive and have them push the buttons. And it's the same kind of deal.
It's always easier to be courageous with billions of dollars in the bank.
It is. And you didn't do anything wrong. There's nothing against the law about this. And so it's easy to say, hey, we created monsters. We exploited vulnerabilities, and because there's no formal charge has been brought against any of the social media companies as of yet. That's probably the next phase, though. Somebody's going to sue them.
It could be. And, as much as I am not a fan of the way that some of these companies do business, I don't think litigation will solve it. I don't know that we want laws, too many laws around this, because then you get really into kind of commingled kind of area around censorship and free speech, and that always makes me nervous. And I don't know that government is the best solution. A government solution is the best solution, just in general, especially looking at our U.S. government.
No, I agree. I don't think it's government.
Or foreign governments, for that matter. But you already see this. I mean, a lot of foreign countries, block access to some of these.
Right.
Because they don't want people to have a voice. And that's not a good solution.
No, it's not a good solution. But I think there has been, for the last decade, we as people have, crawled into the pot that has been on a slow burn. And now, it's like the frog in the kettle. I mean, we didn't all jump into boiling water, but now here we find ourselves really in many aspects of our life immersed in social media, and now, only now asking the question, what are the ramifications of that? How has it changed the quality of my life? What has it done for me as an individual and my development as a human being over the last decade? Has that been good? Has it been bad? Has it been positive? Has it been negative? I think those are questions to be asked that we didn't even know we'd ask a decade ago.
Well, that's true, but we have asked these questions before. So rock and roll was going to destroy the youth of America.
Right.
And then it was going to be, you can go down. Then it was going to be video games. At one point it was going to be pot and the sexual revolution.
Yeah.
Is going to just destroy morality. And, then it was the internet. And then after we realized rock and roll wasn't it, we went after heavy metal for a while too. Right? It's heavy metal. You play this backwards and it tells you to kill your parents or whatever. So there is another side to this that, there's always, or there has typically been something that has been pointed to in society as the next thing that's going to destroy our children. And so far that hasn't happened. And you could say, what has happened to us because of this over the years? There's no way to prove or disprove that. You don't know what would have happened otherwise.
Yeah, that's
and
true.
There are so many factors that go into that. I think that's not really a productive conversation to have. Instead, I think the conversation, when you are looking at it from that point of view, is what responsibility do I have as a user to control this or contribute or not contribute, or as a parent to allow my kids to use this or not allow them, or to monitor this, or to educate them on these things. I don't know. It's easy to complain and say these things are not good. They're terrible and they're this, that, and the other. It's another thing to propose a solution, and that's hard to do because of there's not a perfect solution. However, I think that one really good solution is more transparency. How does this work? What is this designed to do? And more studies that show this is a consequence of this type of X, right? In this case, social network, or you could say video game, or you could say too much screen time, or whatever. And so the reason that these studies are important is because there is enough data now. There's enough time and good data that we can look at and draw conclusions from. And I mean, that's where it has to start.
Yeah.
And, to me, if you look at the safety of young minds, or, whatever, however you want to say that sounds kind of cheesy, but you need to know. I mean, you have to go through a generation or two to figure it out. And hopefully in the meantime, we don't destroy that generation or two.
Yeah, I think that's true.
And I don't think we're past the point of no return here. I think we can manage this.
Oh, I think we can. I think so. For one, and we know this with 2 billion people on Facebook, which is, 1/4 of the world. That it has changed the world. So social media has changed the world, and that's fine. Something's going to change the world, and I think there's a lot of worse things that could have come along and put 2 billion people on this planet in common, which maybe we've never had before in our history. 1/4 of the world all having something in common. So that's not a bad thing. But it goes back to, so let's just think about it. That's why we are doing a podcast like this. So fill in the blank. But the reality is we want to have that conversation. How does technology today impact our world tomorrow? And if you think about, you go back 10 years, you go back 15 years, 20 years, if the founders had really been asking those questions, how does this technology today impact our world tomorrow? I think there's a social responsibility for every one of us to ask and answer those questions. How does the technology that we buy, that we use, that we incorporate into our lives, how does it affect the world, tomorrow? It's how does it affect my world? How does it affect my family's world? How does it affect my community's world? Part of the responsibility we have is to ask and answer those questions, because technology is not going away, which means we've all got to become personally responsible for the decisions that we make technologically. And I think that's part of the point. That's why, Keith, that's why we're doing this podcast, is we want to ask those questions and seriously answer them as we look forward to, what are the good things? What are the bad things? What are the fun things? What are the, what things, what sort of things have yellow flags or red flags on them? And how can we think through those, that decision-making process?
I think that these companies are doing just that right now. I think they are asking themselves those questions out of the need for self-preservation. I think that they would be wise, and they're already doing this. I think they are working on self-regulating in the hopes that nobody else tries to regulate them. And that's good.
Oh, I think that's great. Absolutely. That's a far better way to approach it. And to your point, the more transparent they are, the more open conversations that these companies who leverage the most power in this industry, if we want to call it an industry, the more transparent they are, the more honest they are, the more to say, hey, gosh, we blew it here, and we'd like to adjust. We might like to make some self-correction. We'd like to, change a business strategy moving forward. I think those would be very positive things. I mean, you think about when Google started, and so, I don't know what the slogan of Google, their corporate mission statement was, don't be evil. Because I think somewhere somebody knew, as they looked down into the corridors of time, how powerful something like Google would be. So I asked you a question offline a minute ago, but I'll ask it again online. So how many times a day do you Google something?
All day, every day.
All day. There's no, I remember a time where you used to not know the answer to questions, and you just sort of had to live with that disappointment. I don't know the answer to it. There's hardly a question that we can't find an answer to today.
Right. And, Google's purpose was to index the world's information. That was it.
Yeah, and it's been fantastic. They have done it. I think it's been,
and they're doing a hell of a job.
They're doing a hell of a job. So, yeah, and by the way, Google, this is fill in the blank, man. We're the answer to a lot of questions, right?
Exactly.
Yes,
we are.
We are.
And for the people at Google right now, patreon.com/FITB, $1 challenge. I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, at all you can. Well, I think, maybe to wrap up this discussion, because I certainly don't want to sound negative, because I don't feel negative about it. I feel hopeful. I feel grateful to live in the time and place that we do. I think it is fascinating, and it spurs and satisfies lots of the curiosity we have just as human beings. You know what I'm saying? I mean, man, what a great time in the world to be curious and to be able to find out answers to questions that previous generations you could have never answered, or to learn things that you could have never learned before. I think it's remarkable time in which you live. You just don't want to wake up another 10 years for whatever's coming next and have, like on this one article, and it's the last thing out, Vanity Fair again, but their headline on the deal is, oh my God, what have I done? And they cite, some early Facebook employees regret it. We don't, to the degree that we can keep those statements from happening in the future, I think that's a good thing.
I agree. And, so let me ask you this. If this research had not been done, which prompted these former executives to, publicly, state their opinions, and most of them negative, do you think Facebook would have gone through the trouble of changing its news feed to give you more friends and family information and less of the, kind of secondary information, like, not just political stuff, but a lot of people get their news from Facebook, which is fine sometimes, like news stories and just the kind of secondary kind of noise stuff. Do you think they would have made that change without this research and this outcry from former executives?
That's a good question. The optimist in me wants to say, yes, I think Facebook overall wants to be something that's positive. I don't think anybody's sitting around with ill motive trying to destroy the world or destroy society or destroy people. Yeah, I mean, I don't think they're trying to do that. At the same time, the cynic in me thinks that whatever this change is or ultimately ends up being is to Facebook's great profit, to their great advantage. And so whether it's the immediate advantage or whether it's something that they know about coming along in the next 9 months or 12 months or 2 years, or some acquisition that they're about to make, some company they're about to buy, I think as they look down the corridor of time, they see that there's a real future in this, and it benefits them as well. And so to be able to say, hey, and this benefits you, I think that's good marketing. So I want to say that the motives are good, and they if they have perceived a trajectory that seems negative, that they have turned that around to a positive trajectory, but part of me thinks it really is ultimately for their good.
You want me to give you the right answer?
Yeah, give me the right answer.
Hell no, they wouldn't have made this change without all this. That's the right answer.
Yeah, that's probably
nothing in their history proves that they would have done this unless they felt like they had to. 100%. There is not a doubt in my mind that they would not have done this.
You're good. You're a bigger cynic than me, so I'll be able to sleep well tonight. Well, and you know that even if they're making this change, and even if it is because of the scrutiny, you know it will ultimately be to their advantage. They're the smartest people on the earth, man.
Well, if they do it right, then they will. And then this will be to their advantage. So in the statement that Zuckerberg made, he mentions that the fact that they're going to make this change to the news feed is going to result in people spending less time on Facebook, but the time that they spend will be more valuable to them, which in the long run is a good business move for them. If they knew that already, or thought that already, they would have already made the change.
Yeah, that's true. No, you're right about that. I think that's a true statement. They are probably having to figure out what to do now that they're repositioning their newsfeed. Because their newsfeed, the immediate hit will be advertisement, and the immediate hit will be those things that stack up lots of views and lots of shares because they end up in your news feeds. I guess I'm not even on Facebook anymore, but because they end up everywhere, that's what generates those advertising dollars. So if that changes, then yes, absolutely, they take a huge financial hit in not being able to control, how much those advertisements are looked at, how much they can sell those advertisements for.
Yeah, so I'm going to put a link in the show notes here to an article by Ben Thompson at Stratechery. This is stratechery.com. Ben Thompson's a really smart guy, and if you have a chance, listen to his podcast, and you can visit his site. And every time I either listen to him or read one of his articles, I feel much smarter and much dumber at the same time, because he's way smarter than I'll ever be. And here's how I would just conclude, my contribution to this conversation. And, Facebook's stated mission is to, bring the world closer, connect the world, and make the world a better place, and blah, 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 right?
Yes.
So Ben's point here is, should the personal welfare of 2 billion people be Mark Zuckerberg's responsibility? Do we want that?
I don't want that.
I don't want that. He wants that for obvious reasons. I don't think many other people do.
I saw something. So just think about that. Facebook's as large as the Catholic Church. Maybe larger.
Well, the difference is Facebook is growing and the Catholic Church is not.
I know. He's like,
well, that's one of many differences.
Yes.
I'm sorry. That'll have to be another show.
It's a social media pope, if you will. That's a powerful position. Anyways, I digress. Keep going. You were making a point.
Social media pope. I believe we have a show title. Let me just jot that down.
That's right. Yes, and you let us know what you think about that. At fill in the blank, you can email us your comments, and where you disagree with us or maybe agree with, sing our praises. Either way, it's just fine at fitbpodcast@gmail.com, or really this would be a great thread for Twitter at #AskFITB. So put that out there. All right, well, you were going to make a concluding statement. I cut you off. Conclude this deal, and then we'll get into the next bit.
Well, that was part of it. But so the point here is Zuckerberg says, I'll read from a quote from something that he released last year, Building Global Community. That was the title of it. And it says, our job at Facebook is to help people make the greatest positive impact while mitigating areas where technology and social media can contribute to divisiveness and isolation. Facebook is a work in progress, and we are dedicated to learning and improving. We take our responsibility seriously. So Ben Thompson goes on to say here, even if Zuckerberg is right, is there anyone who believes that a private company run by an unaccountable, all-powerful person that tracks your every move for the purpose of selling advertising is the best possible form of said global governance?
No, of course not.
Exactly.
No. But it's where we are, and and when we signed up for Facebook, we consented to it. That is the reality of it. And so I think it's fine. I think it's good. I think it's good that the users hold the company responsible, all the while still using it in whatever form it continues to be. That's the reality. So, all right. Well, that's, gosh, what did we even title that segment? Keith, it was, is technology killing us? I don't know if it's killing us, but it's...
I'm too depressed to talk about it.
It's influencing us for sure. All right. Well, so this is Fill in the Blank. We are coming to the end of our show, but we added this segment last week. We've talked about it for a couple of weeks. We added it last week, and it's the segment that we call Blank Checks. So here on Fill in the Blank, if you had a blank check or something you were excited about, something you wished you had, but you don't, you've got your eye on it, that's where we're talking about that. So we each have a blank check this week, and I'll tell you what my blank check is. And so a little explanation. I am the Johnny-come-lately on this bit of technology, but I'm going to tell you, it's the Keurig. I got one of these in December, kind of a pre-Christmas deal, and I have been the biggest coffee snob.
So you can drink your coffee while you're checking your fax machine?
Yes, that's exactly right. I'm surprised the Keurig only makes coffee. If it played music while it did it, that would be even better. But I've been a coffee snob, so I'm like, I'm not getting a Keurig. I'm not making coffee out of a vacuum-packed pod, and everything about it totally rubbed me the wrong way, particularly since in my other life, I'm kind of in the coffee business. But so I like making coffee. I like a French press. I like a pour over. I just like a good drip coffee maker. If it makes great coffee, I like to grind the beans. And so that's the way it's been. But the reality is I'm the only person in my family that drinks coffee. I'm married to a tea drinker who does not drink coffee. And so every time I make coffee, I'm only making it for one. And so I make coffee in the morning, or would set a timer so it would make in the morning and all that. But pouring out lots of coffee, which I have never begrudged in my life. But I received a Keurig as a gift with a whole bunch of pods. And I'm telling you, I put my coffee maker in the cabinet, and I have not looked back. I am a Keurig fan. And I can't believe it. I'm admitting it. I have a Keurig problem. I drink more coffee, and it's not bad. It's not bad coffee at all, in all truth. They're geniuses.
That should be their slogan. Keurig. It's not bad.
That's right. Well, I'm telling you, at 6:30 in the evening, if you need something to get through the rest of the evening, I can drink caffeine all the way up till I go to bed. So, but I mean, my kids can make hot chocolate on it. Leslie can make tea with it. And I've experimented now with all different kinds of coffee pods, and I am a fan. If my house was on fire, it would be between, my MacBook Pro or my Keurig, which one of those things I'd get. I'd probably take the MacBook Pro because I could buy a Keurig a lot cheaper, but that's the way I feel about it. It's one of those, if my house was on fire and my children were safe, obviously, if I didn't have to go get them, what thing would I take out of my house? It might be my Keurig.
Well, you heard it here first, folks. The Keurig is a popular coffee maker, apparently. Who knew?
I'm telling you. So if you're holding out, just get you one. You'll thank us later.
Well, I am impressed that you're a coffee snob and you endorse the Keurig. I don't have anything against the Keurig, but I do know lots of coffee snobs that turn their nose up.
I know. I feel like I'm just the biggest betrayal of my whole world, but There it is, the Keurig. All right, so Keith, but you have what's yours? What's your blank check this week?
Well, mine is the Ring Video Pro doorbell.
I want to hear about this. I have almost bought one of those 3 times. Tell us.
Well, I've almost bought one many times, and I finally did.
Okay.
So over the holidays, I accrued some Amazon money, as one tends to do over the holidays.
Yes.
And so this was one of those things I thought, well, if I have a decent chunk of Amazon money, I'll probably put it towards this. I didn't want to spend, my own money for whatever reason. And so I did. And there's 4 different Ring Video doorbells. I got the Video Doorbell Pro, which is the kind of third in the line doorbell. There's the Video Doorbell, the Video Doorbell 2, the Video Doorbell Pro, which is what I got, and then the Video Doorbell Elite. And I'm not going to tell you all the differences between those because I frankly don't know them.
Well, the Elite, when somebody rings your doorbell with the Elite, that's when like the music plays and the disco ball goes off. It's like a party on your front porch, right?
Well, I don't know. I didn't buy that one, but I'll take
okay.
your word for it. It's got to do something because it's twice as much as the Video Doorbell Pro. I don't know what you get for twice the money, but here's why I like this thing. So this is a video doorbell, as it's stated in the name. And so when somebody approaches your door or rings the doorbell, then you are instantly alerted. So they don't just have to push the button to ring the doorbell. As soon as it detects motion, then it will alert you on your phone.
Okay.
And you get to set the motion parameters, by the way. So you go onto the app and you can just kind of outline whatever little area. So if this is on a front porch, which, a doorbell would be, or by your front door, you can kind of outline the area that you want it to detect motion in, and then it will alert you if somebody just enters that space. So if someone is walking up to your door, before they even get there, it will alert you, and then of course, they'll ring the doorbell, and it will, continue on with the video. So it starts recording. It's always recording, I think, and so it gives you the couple of seconds before the motion happened. And then all the way up through, it no longer detects motion or anybody there. You can also kind of set it to detect more. So for example, you can set it to concentrate more on people. So if it detects people, then it will alert you. And if it doesn't detect people, even if there's movement. So there's like a neighborhood cat. We're not really a cat family. There's a neighborhood cat that likes to hang out on our front porch from time to time, and as it walks across it, we'll get alerts.
Yeah.
And so I'm thinking about adjusting it so it turns that part of it off.
Yeah, because we don't need more. The world does not need more cat videos.
No. And the thing is, the cat walks across, by my door, and it records it. And then like a minute later, he walks back the other way, and it alerts me, and then he walks back, and it's like, we got to stop this. So anyway, it does a really good job. This one records in 1080p HD video, which is great. It works with iOS, works with Android, works with Windows 10. It connects to the Wi-Fi that you already have in your house. It has night vision, so it works at night even if your porch light is not on. It has a microphone, so when someone rings the doorbell, you can answer it from the app on your phone wherever you are. So if you're at work or you're at the store, you can answer your doorbell and you can say, leave the package, by the door, or you can say, hey, I can't come to the door right now. Can I help you? Or whatever. And again, if somebody walks up to your front door without touching the doorbell, it will still alert you, and you can still turn on the microphone and talk to them. So this is a really cool device. They make different versions that are, so the one I have, you just use your existing wiring for your doorbell. They also make one that's battery powered if you don't have wiring for the doorbell, or you want to put this somewhere else for whatever reason. You can get one that's battery powered, and the battery lasts for a very long time. And I think they're rechargeable. I'm not 100% sure. So I got this one. There's several different video doorbells like this, but most of them are not compatible with HomeKit for an iPhone. This one is not compatible with HomeKit as of right now, but they have HomeKit support coming in just a few months. And so I'm rolling the dice a little bit to make sure they make good on their pledge there to make this HomeKit compatible. It works without being HomeKit compatible. The difference is I can't, use Siri to say, show me my front door.
Oh, I see. Okay.
Right. And once it's HomeKit compatible, you should be able to use Siri to turn it on. When you swipe up, on Control Center on your phone, I have Hue lights, and, I can just swipe up and all my lights are there. I can turn them on, turn them off from just the Control Center on my phone. And presumably I'd be able to swipe up and just, click on, my front door and it'll show me my front door. So that's what HomeKit compatibility would get you. Now, this does integrate with Amazon's Echo. And so there's the newer Amazon, is it the Echo Show, which has the screen? I don't have one of those. We've got several Echoes in our house, as we've discussed on previous shows. I don't have the one with the screen. But apparently with that one, a lot of people put that in their kitchen, for example. And you can say, Lady in the Can, show me my front door. And it'll just show you your front door on the screen. I think that's really cool. And when HomeKit compatibility gets added, then you'll be able to do that with your phone.
Yeah, I think you never have to miss a package being delivered, for one. You can be on vacation and, know what kind of activities happen at your front door. You know what you really need to be able to do is, so for your cat, you need to be able to, pipe the sound of a barking dog through the speaker on your doorbell, or be able to answer somebody when they ring your doorbell in a Darth Vader voice. Now, that would be pretty cool.
All right, I'm going to take that down. I'm going to work on that. I like the cat one.
Yeah, you could fix your cat problem in a hurry. Every time it walked by, if it heard a dog barking, it wouldn't hang out on your front porch very much anymore.
Or the neighbor could just take care of their cat.
Or the neighbor could, yes. Talking about humans regaining humanity there. All right.
I'd settle this week for them regaining control of their cats.
All right, so Ring Video Pro Doorbell. You'll put a link in the show notes for us, I'm sure.
I will.
Yeah, I'd love that. Okay. All right. Well, Keith, this has been a great discussion. I appreciate all of your thoughts about technology, and as we, as people, as consumers, evaluate and process, technology of today and where it's going tomorrow and how it's going to impact tomorrow. I think this was a fantastic discussion for the topic of this show. And so it's with that we're going to conclude this week's discussion of fill in the blank and how the technology of today impacts the world of tomorrow. So thanks for listening. Remember, fill in the blank $1 challenge that Keith talked about. Your support goes a long way, and you can do that at patreon.com/FITB. That's Patreon, patreon.com/FITB. And we will see you again next week here at Fill in the Blank.